I'm your host, Stephen Mitchell, and this is Tales from the Trails. And for the next half an hour, we're going to explore the whole aspect of the East Coast Greenway here in Bloomfield, the newest section of the East Coast Greenway from Canada to Key West is happening right here in Bloomfield, Connecticut. We're going to hear from Suzette DeBeatham-Brown, and she's the mayor of Bloomfield. We'll hear from Kevin Gough, who is the town councilman, and we're going to hear from Jonathan Thiesse, the town engineer, and talk about the impact, economic impact, and the impact that it's going to have on this community. We're real excited. As you know, the East Coast Greenway in the Farmington Valley and from New Haven to Simsbury has existed for many years now, and this is the connector that's going to get us from the Farmington Valley into Hartford, Connecticut. We are in the chambers at the Bloomfield Town Council, and I'm here with the mayor, Suzette DeBeatham-Brown.
Yep,
correct?
you are absolutely correct.
And Kevin Gough.
Gough, yes.
Okay. And so what I want to do is to talk to you both about the impact that this great trail, the Greenway, has on the town of Bloomfield, and kind of your perspectives on the trail and what it's going to do for your town.
So this East Coast Greenway is absolutely amazing, and for Bloomfield to be a part of this, there's 200 miles of trail in Connecticut, and for Bloomfield to be a part of that, I think is absolutely wonderful. There is so much activity and life happening in Bloomfield, and to have a secure place to bike and to walk for our community, I think is absolutely amazing, right? We have millennials that are moving into Bloomfield, and they want some place that they can go to be safe, to exercise, and to enjoy our town. I think this Greenway is the best part of what you're going to see community looking like. You're going to see people of different ages, different color, different races taking advantage of this. And I also believe that this will be a great economic development opportunity for Bloomfield as well.
I couldn't agree more with you. We're excited because we're finally getting this built. The first section is going to be the northern section that's going in now. That will connect us to Simsbury via Tariffville. And if anyone, anyone who is a biking, walking, running enthusiast has been over on the Greenway as it exists now in Simsbury, East Granby, down to Canton and so forth, and know that as soon as you have that in place, people use it for all sorts of activities besides running and biking and so forth. They walk their dogs, and it's just a place for socialization. I think what's really important for Bloomfield is that this is the first section, and the next sections are going to be critical because we're going to extend from the northern section down into the center of town. That will tie into the kind of development we're having in town now, trying to get millennials and younger professionals into an urban walking environment, as we've done in the Heirloom Flats apartment houses. And then once we get done with that, the last section is to connect us over to the University of Hartford, and that's really where I think we're going to get the big bang, because we will be combining the University of Hartford and all of its resources with the town, and that's where we have a real opportunity to bring tech businesses, a lot of newer type of 21st century operations to Bloomfield and show what we have to offer.
So where do you see this project going from here in the future, and how is this going to impact the town of Bloomfield and the surrounding area?
So that would be the completion of the trail, right, in 2030. Yeah. And that would be one of the best products for economic growth. Yeah. One of the best products for community, because we'll be witnessing people from different community, different states, right, coming in through this Greenway. So I believe that this beautiful gem of a town that we have, because I do say that Bloomfield is the best town in the state of Connecticut, will be opened up to so many more people, right? And I believe that our city, our town, in the city of Hartford, the town of Bloomfield, Simsbury, will just be blooming, will be a bright spot on this trail. And to see that come to fruition will be amazing. I'm not sure if we'll all be here or all be here in the same capacity that we are in now. I'm sure we're not. But I believe this town and the surrounding towns will definitely get a great injection of people, of economic development, of diverse community. So
There's virtually nothing to add to that. I think the one thing that we will notice on the ground, people who are public officials, with the car society and the suburb society, it's difficult sometimes to convince businesses or different enterprises to come because of the lack of activity. By 2030, the people who are officials are not going to have that problem. Yeah. It'll be much more like West Hartford, where they get, people come in all the time and they get to sort of pick and choose what they want. And I think that's where we're going.
Okay, so we're here on the trail. This looks like it'll be paved in the next few months. We're actually going to go to a section in another moment where it is already paved. It got paved right before July 4th, 2019. And, but this is a hugely, just such an important piece of the East Coast Greenway right here, Bloomfield, Connecticut. And I'll tell you why. Because if you could pan into the East Coast Greenway, this most of it's built from New Haven to Simsbury, Connecticut. It's 90% done. It's been patchwork quilt, and you can see this is a very old map and it's got a lot of dotted lines on it. That means to be built. Most of that is all done. The only section that's really not done right now is a section through Plainville and a little bit of North Southington. So, but all along here, the East Coast Greenway's got to go from New Haven to Boston, and the problem with most of this old train line, it presented a great opportunity because it was a defunct train line that went from New Haven to Northampton, Massachusetts, and it went out of business in the mid-70s. The problem is particularly once you get up in this area where my finger is right there, there's a mountain. And for all intents and purposes, it's called Avon Mountain. It's about a 500-foot climb over Avon Mountain. How are you going to do that, and how are you going to have bicyclists that want to do that? Yeah, there's hardcore cyclists that go on Avon Mountain, and sometimes I'm one of those, but not often. So how would you make it realistic for commuters, for commutation, for example, by bicycle from the Farmington Valley to Hartford, to Bloomfield, Windsor, Hartford? So the solution really is to come through Terriffill, and that's always been a little bit controversial. How exactly do you get through Terriffill? And that's still on the drawing board, maybe. It's still being decided, I should say. But Jeff Shea, the town engineer for the town of Simsbury, and Jonathan Thiesse, the town engineer for Bloomfield, came up with a plan, and it's right where I am now. This section got funded a couple years ago, and I believe this is about 2.5 miles. It goes from the end of the Griffin line right here to Terriffill. So what really needs to be figured out is exactly what happens after the Griffin line and exactly how it's going to get into Hartford. And it also needs to be figured out exactly how it's going to get through Terriffill. So I can hear some heavy equipment coming, so I think we should end this segment, and I should maybe get out of here. So here we are actually in Bloomfield, kind of on the Terriffill side of Bloomfield. Right behind my cameraman, Sarah, there is St. Andrew's Church. And this section right here is quite exciting because they're paving it today, and this should be ready to ride in the next, probably by August, September, next few weeks. And as you can see, this is work in progress, and we love the progress coming. So thanks a lot, and keep watching because got more segments. So part of the show today is we have
Jonathan Thiesse, the town engineer from Bloomfield.
All right, Jonathan. So as we were talking in the ride over here, we've been working on this project for over 10 years now. And tell me a little bit about the trail, what this trail is going to mean for Bloomfield and for the surrounding area.
Well, I think for Bloomfield, there's a very strong both bicycle and hiking, community in Bloomfield who have been pushing for this for quite a while, and I think it's very important for the town both to provide recreation for that community, but also economic development and economic impact of the town as the trail itself links areas of the town to the town center and other economic areas of the town, business areas.
So that was actually going to be one of the questions that I had loaded up here, and that's number 5 on my questions, but I'm going to ask this to you now. Are you ready for what we would call the Collinsville, Southington, Simsbury effect in terms of welcoming these people from other communities to come to your town, to come to your trails?
I would say we are getting there, especially in the town center portion, in Bloomfield, where between work we're doing at Philly Park and work we're doing in the town green, the restaurant community in that area is very strong and getting stronger, and the new apartment buildings and units that are going into town, it's really getting very vibrant in the Bloomfield center.
Okay. So we are kind of at the intersection of 187 and 189, correct? Right here in the background.
That is correct.
That's correct. Okay. So this is kind of the beginning of the trail going towards Simsbury. And if you could, for the next minute or two, just kind of give us an idea on the map as to where we are.
So yes, here's a map of Bloomfield and where the trail is going. The current project is in yellow right here. And this is 187 Blue Hills Avenue. This is 189 with Tunxus Avenue. And we're standing about right here. The intersection's there. This trail starts on Dayho Road, right near the Windsor town line with Bloomfield. Follows most of the way along an old railroad corridor, which is currently owned by Eversource, and the town is very grateful to Eversource for their cooperation in this, because we are on their property most of the way. So the Eversource right-of-way crosses Doncaster Road. There's an old railroad bridge that was out that is good. We're putting a new bridge in across Griffin Brook, so that's kind of a neat feature.
I was talking to you on the phone the other day, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And then right in this location is Old St. Andrew's Church, a historic church in town, which is another nice feature that the trail goes past. There's a parking lot. We're expanding their parking lot. We're sharing, again, cooperation between the town and the church to share parking lot in that area, which will be beneficial to the trail. From there, it heads down across some open Eversource property back towards 189, where it heads towards Terriffill, and that's where it ends right now. That's kind of where our funding ends on this part of the project. But going from there, as you know, Simsbury has been doing much work in their town with respect to these trails. And so we really wanted to get a connection that required cooperation between the two towns. And so together we have succeeded in getting state funding through the LOTSIP program on a joint project to connect the trail from the end of this current project in the town into Terriffill in Simsbury. We're very excited. That project is near the end of design. We're almost finished with design. We expect to be in construction next year, so there will be a connection then all the way from, within Bloomfield to Terriffill, back and forth. In the other direction, the East Coast Greenway corridor is expected to follow the old railroad, well, it's actually an active railroad right away, the Griffin line, from Dayho Road down to the town center, Wittenberry Avenue, which is a very long stretch. That's probably about 3 miles total. And then from there, some fashion of following some roadway, following Park Avenue and old trolley tracks to somewhere down probably to Cottage Grove Road in the vicinity of Copaco Shopping Center. From there, the path into Hartford is still somewhat up in the air. Originally, the thought would be that we would follow the railroad tracks, get to University of Hartford, get them involved, which we still hope will happen regardless. But at the same time, right now, Hartford is they've got funding and are working on a project to extend their own trails from downtown up to the I-291 bridge, which I can't think of the name of right now, but to the I-291 bridge, which is just on 291, this is 291 Cottage Grove Road, just outside of Bloomfield. So we're also looking at the possibilities of connecting into that may be an easier route into Hartford and quicker route to make happen than going down along the north branch of the Park River, which has some issues or concerns, I guess I would say. So those are the routes we're looking at. A lot of it, as far as how quickly it happens, is going to be dependent on funding, especially this next stretch here, which is the 3 miles, is a very expensive project that it's hard to get funding for. So we're kind of hoping at some point the state steps up and helps us with that part of it. So that's our route through Bloomfield.
The one thing as a bicyclist, and it's just hard from the Farmington Valley to get to Hartford, and for most commuters that are trying to go to work, in Washington D.C. and Baltimore, all these ventures and adventures that I've been on with the East Coast Greenway, I've seen these cities that with these great commuter routes, bike trails, to go into the city. It's very difficult from the Farmington Valley when you've got Avon Mountain there. It's not an easy way to get over. And this was kind of controversial a few years ago because they had to change the routing out here for the East Coast Greenway on-road route. Explain what happened, and this was done about 4 years ago when they signed the East Coast Greenway through Connecticut, and why was that changed?
Well, I think when they went to do the signing and had to get, I would imagine they had to get their permits from the DOT to put the signs up along Route 189 coming out of Terriffill, it was realized that Route 189 between Terriffill and kind of where this project takes off in Bloomfield is identified as a non-access highway. And what a non-access highway means in a couple different things. One is you're not supposed to be able to get driveways into it, but the other thing is pedestrians and bicyclists are prohibited, similar to a freeway.
Right.
And so obviously it didn't make sense to be able to direct bicyclists to a non-access highway. And so that meant that they had to reroute the on-road Greenway.
It just seems odd to me that they designed it this way. I assumed it was something about the flood of 55 and wiping out the infrastructure around this area, but do you know why that the state did this? Was this part of some experiment or something?
Well, I think the non-access highway part of it comes about because of the interchange that was built both with 175 heading north into East Granby, and also just down from that, there's I guess you would call it an interchange. There's actually like exit ramps off of the roadway down onto Doncaster Road and Terriffill Road in Bloomfield. And because of those exit ramps and how that affects traffic and people trying to cross those exit ramps, I would think is why they designate it as a non-access highway.
Okay. As I was saying, Simsbury can try all they want and do all kinds of great reports, but we're not going to get to gold level status until we get the commuter, the commutation nut percentage up. And this is the key to that. Simsbury, Avon, Canton, all those towns. I know Canton right now is a town that's actively seeking the bicycle-friendly community status. Is there any talk in Bloomfield of that, and when do you think that might happen?
I think there definitely is talk. Again, we have an active community, and we are just finishing up or in the process of finishing up a complete streets evaluation and policy in town. I see that as a first step to, moving towards what are we going to do to better accommodate bicycle traffic in town and commuting through town with the bicycles. I think the this trail and getting this started is a big step towards that as well, both on our side, and I think that's one of the big large focuses of the complete streets effort in town.
Right. You use the term big step. I'm going to use the term huge. This is huge. And if you're watching this program, if you're from Simsbury or from Bloomfield or whatever town you're from, you can get involved with bicycle-friendly community. Go to League of American Bicyclists, bicycle-friendly communities. You'll see the list of bicycle-friendly communities. I think we have 9 in the state of Connecticut right now. I think silver is Simsbury and New Haven, I think, are both silver. But there's many other towns, Farmington, West Hartford, South Windsor, many other towns in the Farmington Valley, the greater Hartford area. Glastonbury, I think, just got bicycle-friendly communities. So it would be awesome if every town along the East Coast Greenway became a bike-friendly community. That's really what I've got. Any other comments that you have on this trail, on the significance to Bloomfield?
You know, when you say the significance, I guess the first place I want to go with that is what this trail has shown and meant, I guess, in terms of cooperation in the community of Bloomfield and the bigger community. As I mentioned before, Eversource has been a huge cooperation with allowing us to put this trail on their property and working with us, having, accommodate their facilities. The town council, the current one as well as the one before that, have been supportive from the beginning. A significant amount of town money has actually gone into this as well. With respect to that, also other governmental agencies, this particular project is being built with federal transportation monies, which has gone through the state, the state of Connecticut. They've been very supportive. All of that is through the region, Capital Region Council of Governments, who they themselves, are very supportive of all the bicycle and complete streets efforts in the area. And just any number of members of the community over the as you pointed out, the 10 plus years that Bloomfield has been working towards this point of having this initial trail segment, and too many to mention, but it's been a really important community effort to get to this point, and hopefully that will continue forward as we finish out the rest of the trail and the East Coast Greenway through Bloomfield and the whole area.
And thank you, Jonathan Thiesse, for your rendition of the Bloomfield Rail Trail. I'm out here in the field, so to speak. I'm right along Route 189. This is where the trail is going to connect up to 189. It's actually going to go right along 89. You can see where the gravel's going to go along the road. And that's where this is. I just kind of wanted to give you, the viewer, an idea of where this is. If you're familiar with Terriffill, and where Terriffill is probably about a half a mile to our northwest. So I'm here with Leonardo, and we are talking asphalt, and we're talking about the new standards. And Leonardo has an awesome job, I think, because he's testing this and making sure this is way better than the rails to trails that were in the greenways that were built in the 80s and 90s. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Well, what I do is I come out here with my machine, and we use a nuclear densometer, and we test the compaction of the materials. This reads the density of the materials, and we run some tests at our labs. We try to find the highest density, and we run that with our machine here. So it's necessary to test the base to make sure that's stable and firm.
Right.
And then we test every layer after that. We test the asphalt, we test the top course of the asphalt. We try to make it so that it's between 92 and 97% compacted, because you need some air in there so that it can expand and contract with the heat and the cold.
Right.
So that's mainly my job, is to come out here, test and get compaction, make sure that they're compacted it well and that it can last. So
you got me. I was like, what's that called, that machine?
It's a nuclear densometer. It checks the density and the moisture of the material using nuclear particles.
Okay.
And it has a Geiger counter in there that it shoots out nuclear particles into the ground. And some of them get lost in the air void, some of them get shot back to the Geiger counter.
Right.
And this reads how many particles it gets. So it's a very complicated machine.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a trick question.
Okay.
Do you know what the East Coast Greenway is?
East Coast Greenway?
Yes. Do you know what the East
No
Coast?
clue.
No clue. I got news for you. You're standing on it.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay. So if somebody told you, 100 years ago you had the opportunity to build the Appalachian Trail, would that be kind of cool?
It would have been the greatest opportunity of my life.
right here, you're standing on the East Coast Greenway. This greenway will actually go from Canada to Key West.
Wow.
So this is I call it the linchpin in Connecticut, because we've never really figured out how to get over Avon Mountain to get from the Farmington Valley into Hartford. And so you're standing on it, you're building it.
It's a beautiful trail.
You're building the East Coast Greenway.
Yes,
There we go.
yes,
Cool.
perfect.
Thank you. Thanks for doing a great job.
All right, have a great
Appreciate
day.
it. Thank you. So here we are. This is the section of the trail that actually intersects with Doncaster Road. And to get back to what the gentleman, Leonardo, was talking about, what's across Doncaster Road to the east is actually the finished section. That is actually the very end of the Griffin line, what's called the Griffin line. There's the train, the locomotive kind of stays over there, but that's the end of the Griffin line. Now, if you come back to me, and I'm trying to, throughout this segment, kind of give you, the viewer, a realistic kind of viewpoint of where we are exactly. So right now, we actually might be in a corner of Windsor. Bloomfield is right there. Simsbury is about a half a mile or a quarter mile that way is Simsbury. And this is 187 and 189. Now, what I hope you've seen in the past few minutes is absolutely the importance of this piece that's getting done right now. Hartford's that way. Hartford, Providence, Boston, Maine, Canada is that way. Simsbury, New Haven, New York City, Washington, D.C., everything south. Key West is about 2,100 miles that way. So the sections of East Coast Greenway are getting built mile by mile. This is a 2-mile section that's getting done here from Bloomfield to Simsbury. It's exciting because it gives you the freedom, and this is right around July 4th. We got freedoms. This gives you independence from having to drive your bicycle, as I say, drive or ride your bicycle, in kind of a very free way to do this. And I started this segment just now on Route 189. Right now I'm on a trail. When I'm on a trail with my wife, my kids, soon-to-be my grandchildren, I don't have to worry about cars or trucks. This piece of pavement is protected and it's safe. And so please support the Greenways. Please get involved with whatever town you're watching this from. Get involved with the Greenways in your town and safe cycling. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.